We're live, everybody. Welcome in. It is Friday, June 2nd, 1 p.m. Central, right on time. 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. I'm joined by our awesome community members, Mimi and Not Legal Advice / Richard / everybody else. Thank you so much. I think Hans will be joining us shortly. He's just wrapping up a conversation with James and Scott on his channel, Hans Nelson. Go check it out if you'd like, and then come back when he comes back. Whatever you like to do. We're actually talking about Project Highland, China, right before we went live. But before we do that, and Elon's visit to China related to Tesla. But Richard, give us your MMTLP update with your super dapper outfit. My goodness, what a handsome fella. Go ahead.
Look at that. And so I don't look ridiculous. I'm going to take off the glasses, but I'll leave the appropriate tie on. I think it's day 175, MMTLP, still no resolution, no shareholders, nothing of value. And I see this is like a continuing running. So, everybody hears about it every week. So people are actually losing their homes week by week because a lot of these people relied and maybe they shouldn't have, but they did. They relied upon their life savings. They put it in here and they're stuck. And they have no other resources. And again, it impacts everybody. And one thing I was going to raise today, I saw an article that said that Tesla's new legal team, one of the things they are targeting is short sellers of Tesla, illegal short selling of Tesla. So good. Elon knows this is an issue and it impacts everyone. So go check it out yourself, MMTLP or not, KNOT legal advice. And please feel free to leave any comments or suggestions.
Fantastic. And they can find Not Legal Advice on YouTube, correct? Okay, yes. Fantastic. Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Very handsome fella today that's standing in for Richard. Cool. So we were just talking about Elon Musk's visits to China, the much rumored Highland project, which is a refreshed Model 3, or other folks are thinking might be something else. But we were just talking about how that rumor that Elon Musk was going to be shown a prototype and we would see a prototype, but it looks like that didn't come to fruition because Elon Musk is back on. He's not in China anymore. I don't know where he's at, but he's not in China anymore. And so, some folks are surprised that we didn't see a prototype for Highland. Richard, did you guys want to take that and then we can make it into a conversation? Was there something you guys wanted to share?
Yeah, no, I just think that Rob was right, that the prototype was made for Elon, and it's too early to show anything in public. And I guess they will do a thing of it when they show it.
But what's interesting is obviously, we've talked about this, the Osborne effect. So now that model is out there, and obviously Model 3s aren't selling. I don't think they weren't selling because of that. I think they weren't selling because the Model Y was, outselling everything. But now I think Model 3 sales will further stall, I would think. No pun intended, although pun intended. And I would think that there would be a reason to expedite the completion and release of that Highland 3 because they just cut, what did they cut prices on Model 3? Just did, I think, the second time in a week. Yeah. So they're trying to dump their existing inventory. They probably would like to not build a bunch more in the current state, and but they don't want to kill sales. So I think it's interesting because we knew, or there were articles saying that June 1 was going to be when the production was going to start. Tesla vehemently denied that, and now we understand why they denied it. We were discussing this before. Elon's travels to China, might have been made plans 6 months ago. So they knew when he was going to be here. I'm sure they timed the release or the availability of at least a vehicle for his appearance there. And the question is how far along the pre-production is and how long it will take them to go from this state of the prototype till market.
Yeah.
But do you think that they will start making them simultaneously in the US and China? Because if they only make them in China, it wouldn't affect the American market. They wouldn't get them anyway. Or what do you think?
Well, they're importing from China to Canada, right? So I think theoretically they could import from China it sounds silly, but I guess they could import from China to the United States too.
But then they don't get the tax credit or the
Well, it's getting half the credit now for the Model 3. But they're manufactured here. It's just a battery thing. I do think there's going to be. I think they're going to be manufactured stateside and in China. I think there's going to be two different production lines because we did see some mules driving around. And producer wife, if you can find this Project Highland Model 3 test car. There were pictures of a Model 3 with like a cover front in the States, and now you have this visit in China of rumor is that they're checking on the production, and so the fact that we haven't seen a production ready sort of test car driving around, because that's one of the things Richard brought up, is like it's about 6 months until you usually see a prototype to when the production starts, once you start seeing them on the roads, which is what we saw with the Model 3 and the Model Y and so on and so forth. And I think that is a clue that says, in my opinion, that this refresh is much more a refresh than anything that's crazy. So here's an article from, when was this? May 12th, 2023. So about 3 weeks ago, call it. Model 3 Highland spotted with significant interior changes. I think a lot of the people that followed the story closely are very well aware of this. So we've been seeing these types of prototypes already on the road. And my guess is that the China production line, the prototype Elon Musk reportedly was being shown, is a finalized production-ready version prototype. So, they run a few through the line, and they'll probably test them around the country, I'm going to guess, probably with a similar type of covering on the car to make sure that it works well. But my guess is that it coming out is going to be a much shorter time frame than, say, the Cybertruck, where we saw the first prototypes hitting the road. We're probably not going to see it really in full production until probably end of Q3, early Q4. So I think there's a longer timeline, and I think it coincides also with the fact that Tesla was dropping Model 3 prices as well in inventory. Now that could be related to, you brought this up earlier too, is that, hey, Model Y is just performing so damn well that you just need to incentivize people to buy the Model 3 by lowering price. But there's so much smoke. There's so much smoke around this Highland project, and it's clearly happening. But I think the debate is out is it a Q2 thing? Is it a Q3 thing, or is it a Q4 thing? And the initial documents, I think, that were sort of like leaked or whatever from a few quarters back, I think I remember reading September of this year or something like that. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's them, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it's earlier, because I don't expect this to be a full crazy change of the architecture. I just think it's a bunch of taking out costs, refreshing the interior, nipping and tucking some lines, maybe some new headlights, but the 80% or 85 to 90% of the car will be basically the same.
It's interesting they start the deliveries in China. Well, I'm presuming that, but it's interesting they would start the deliveries in China and not the United States. So they'll because if they're going to build it in China, it'll probably be more of a local product. I guess it could go to Europe too, but it would be more of a local product, at least to start off with. And I was thinking, I don't know what it would compete with, because NIO is much higher priced. BYD is kind of lower priced. There's a bunch of others that don't sell any cars, selling like significant number of cars. And I'm sure in China, that TAM is huge. Sure. For that price area, it's going to be huge numbers. And we also know that the problem that exists in China for the existing OEMs is they're stuck with all those gas cars, and they have to deal with them. And in particular, and I've been reading about this recently, it's especially the Japanese OEMs, because their sales, most of their sales, or the majority or the plurality, go to China. And they're going to lose that market as a gas market. And they're, as we know, they're way behind in terms of electric. They're going to be in deep trouble. So I just think there's going to be a lot more room for that particular model in China.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I think the Model 3 refresh is much less about trying to put it against competition and say China, if that's the market it launches in first. But it's more getting ready for the compact car, so that there's good differentiation. And it's something we talked about before. One of the rumors I read day or two ago was that the Highland's going to be something that's a little bit more sporty. It's a little bit more, maybe a tiny bit more luxurious or something, but it's going to create differentiation between it and the Y with the sportiness, right? So you have a smaller form factor than the Y, much shorter. I'm going to guess the center of gravity is going to be much lower, and you'll probably have some additional features around the steering and how it behaves around a track, let's say. So that's like, okay, great. So it's like a super baby, poor person's roadster, let's call it. It's the Model 3, right? Like the new hot hatch. If you want to call it, or
I heard actually a comparison to like the 3 Series BMWs, kind of like
exactly
that spot.
Yeah.
Exactly, and so I think this refresh is much more. The Highland is that, so that when the compact car launches and it takes the world by storm, then you have really good differentiation. Roadster is your, I'm going to destroy everything on any road ever, and I don't care against who, like I'm going to win. Then you have the SNX, which is the, look at how fancy I am, look at how cool my car is, I love this car, and it can fly away with the doors, you know? The Model Y is the awesome SUV that's like, it's an every car for every person kind of thing, best bang for your buck. Probably going to be the second best-selling car for Tesla outside of maybe the Cybertruck, if that form factor really takes off worldwide and people really find good uses for a long-distance hauler that really, truly does everything. You could take it off-road and survive an apocalypse, potentially. And then you have your Model 3, which is an entry-level car for people that really want to experience awesome performance in an electric vehicle that like will blow away anything except, say, the top tier cars. Then you have the compact car, which is the most affordable EV that you can have, and it will get you from point A to point B in the best way possible at the cheapest cost possible. And then the van is like your, if you want to haul 10 people around and, you know, go on, whatever. What a van usually does in cargo haul. So it's like now there's a very obvious differentiation between the products. It's not just like, hey, very efficient transportation. Now it's, hey, this is our broad product offering. So
do you think
it will be cheaper than, I mean, do you think the gap between 3 and Y will be wider?
Well, I think it's already what, 10, what's the price difference right now between a Y and a 3? It's like $7,000. Let me look it up. So if I'll go into maybe pull this up too, producer wife, as we're going through this. If I go into,
I was going to ask the same question Mimi did, but I was going to do it between the 2 and the 3.
That too.
I think I would like the 2 being the compact. I'm calling it the 2. So I would like 10 grand between those 2 also.
Yeah, I mean it's absolutely going to be more expensive than the compact, right? It's going to be probably. It's probably going to be more. I would guess the compact car will be less. It will be more or less than. how do I say that? Somebody help me. Why is my brain failing on me right now?
Greater than $10,000.
A greater difference. Yeah. Okay. Thank you to my math brain for not being able to use words. Christ. It's about a $7,000 difference right now between the Model 3 and the Model Y. But I would expect the compact car and the Model 3 to have more than a $7,000 difference, probably closer to say 10 to 12,000, which the Model 3 being a little bit sportier and more luxurious will allow them to do that because they can then command a premium on that product versus the compact car. And then I would expect the compact car to truly be quite utilitarian and very, very basic in its product offering. But when it comes to point A to point B with a lot of entertainment, with the infotainment screen and more than acceptable comfort and ride quality, that will just, the performance is not going to be insane, but it will just get you from point A to point B and just, and by far the lowest cost per mile. It's going to be great. So that's where I'm at. Yeah. Does that answer?
When they spoke about, I think, combine the compact and that other vehicle they didn't mention, so I guess it was presumed to be the van. And they said, we're going to do at least 5 million units between the 2 of them. I think that's what he said. I would think the compact alone has got to sell more than 5 million units. In that 20 million a year calculation, I would think that compact's got to be closer to 10 million units if you get to 20.
I agree.
If they don't make anything even smaller.
True.
That's true. Yeah. And I've heard sort of, and this is something that I'm open to sort of thinking through, but I've heard that this compact car is not so much a car, but it's a platform. It's a platform of multiple types of cars, and this platform is going to be able to sell 5 to 10 million cars per year. But I agree with you. I think a compact car or a cheaper vehicle, let's call it a $25,000 to $30,000 electric vehicle, that's going to get all those feature sets that we talked through, and it's going to have a price point that's going to allow it to have less than $500 per month all-in cost of transportation, maybe even less than that. That market, I have a hard time not seeing that being at least a 10 million per year market, for that kind of car. You think about the total market right now, it's after COVID was what, 60 to 80 million, 60 million, 70 million cars globally sold or something. But as we get into the EV transition and we get into more and more affordable cars, and the rest of the world kind of joins in being able to purchase these products, I think that car is going to command such a giant lead. It's going to be one of these tail things, right? It's like market dominance, and then everybody else kind of like down here playing in this space. So I agree with you.
Yeah. And I was thinking Elon plays the diplomat, really. He's been great in China. Really. I wish the calm that he's displayed, ironically, I wish the calm he's displayed was displayed by the leaders of the world in this particular context. Okay. But I was thinking along those lines, maybe that's kind of also the route to better relations. Is we're talking about EVs. So China obviously is going 100% EV. They're all in. The United States and Europe, the production numbers are really bad. I mean, other than Tesla, nobody is producing numbers. Lucid, I think, just had to dilute themselves again because they basically are out of money. They can either go bankrupt, they can let the Saudis take them private, which is I think it's what's going to happen. Saudis going to take that private. It's going to be the personal vehicle of the kingdom, the EV. That's what I've thought all along. I agree. But I don't think there's enough production in the United States. It gets back to that curve, that drop-off curve. I don't think there's enough production in the United States. China wants to be in the United States because they know it's next to China. It's the second biggest market in the world. And I think that their necessity of placing their vehicles in the United States might be the key to better diplomatic relations, because they're going to need to be on good terms with the United States or that industry that they think, because they believe that they will be number one in EVs in the world. The only thing that would exclude them if they're specifically excluded from markets. So I happen to believe that maybe long-term, their need to be in the world market might be the solution to the political strife that we see now.
Interesting. Doesn't that feel very far away, though? I mean, you kind of think about the rhetoric that's coming out with U.S. and China. So you think this is like the beginning of a multi-year process of sort of Elon Musk playing the role of, let's get everybody together on the let's get them to the table and see if we can figure out a way to move past this? Is this how you're thinking about this?
I think that's what he perceives. And again, also we get kind of stuck. We look at the day, like today's events, and 5 years from now, things could be completely different. Sure. And we would never anticipate it, and they could change on a dime. So I think for his and Tesla's interests, it's obviously best that the United States and China have good relations. And if he could be the catalyst for that, then hey, all the better. We're going to all benefit. But I think China really does want to have control. They want to be the leader, and that's what they say. They want to be in without access to the United States and with, let's say limited access in Europe, or not complete access, or not complete acceptance. I don't think they're going to get there. So I really think that might be the means to the end. And, that would be great for everybody.
Maybe.
But how do you think they're going to get acceptance? Because I just read an article about Chinese EVs in Europe, and they're doing terribly. In Sweden, they opened big stores, and NIO, they built this battery changing stuff. They delivered 2 cars, and they are just for the showrooms. The others, 13 cars, 21 cars, they're not selling.
I read the same stuff, and I agree that it's kind of that issue, right? Because the country is being banished to some degree also.
And I think it's going to be even harder in the US.
No, but what I was going to say is that one thing they did say, because I read this, maybe it's the same article, but the same stuff. They said in Germany, they were adamantly against the Chinese in 2022. But in 2023, they started to buy. So they said Germany was kind of like, that was the one you would look to, because that would be like, because they take pride in German engineering. That's kind of their thing. But there they got change already, and there was acceptance, and it was economics. Really, they were cheaper, and they could do it like that. But I agree, in the current political state, they can't. That's why I think they need that. They need to normalize things. Now I agree. Now if you looked at it, you couldn't expect that. But maybe a year or two down the road, when their industries are a little more developed, and because right now their economy sucks in China, relatively for them. But maybe like when they come out of whatever they're in and they want to expand their industries, that will be the time that they are interested in negotiating and normalizing. And to the extent now they can create fear and leverage, why not? Why not make it make the world more apprehensive? So when you negotiate, you have more leverage to give up.
Yeah.
I think they have to stop supporting Russia.
Yeah, that would help.
So in the comments section, do let us know what you think about this development. Do you think that a Chinese automaker, say, entering the Western world and in full force with their EVs, do you think they'll be accepted by those countries? What is your experience if you've been exposed to any Chinese EVs being released, especially if you're in Europe? Let us know if you can kind of echo what Mimi's saying. I know, Mimi, you live in Sweden, and so you're seeing that firsthand, and you're reading these articles. So it's something that you're seeing. Let us know if you're seeing that as well. And then maybe producer wife, maybe we'll run a poll. Let's ask, do you think a Chinese automaker will be accepted in the U.S. Once they launch?
What's interesting from a commercial standpoint, there are already Chinese vehicles in the United States.
Yeah,
I think BYD produces a lot of commercial vehicles. So from a business or commercial standpoint, I guess it doesn't make a difference. But from an individual kind of the populist standpoint, it definitely makes a difference.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, you think about the Model 3. The Model 3 is kind of Chinese, a part of it, because of the LFP batteries.
And Elon saying that the cars made in Shanghai, they have the highest quality of all the Teslas.
Yeah.
So
he said this at his what was it, at the one little Tesla thing that I forget who revealed this, but on Twitter they had a video of this going on. I do find it very interesting how now we're living in 2023. Do you guys feel like the sentiment has changed from where we were earlier this year in 2022 around the Tesla story, the sort of its stock performance? How people's optimism or pessimism, it feels like something like now we're on the other side of it, where there was a lot of pessimism. Now there seems to be a lot of optimism, and I wonder how much a stock price, and if you can bring this up when you get a chance, producer wife, how much a stock price is causing a lot of us to feel that way. Do you guys have any commentary around that?
I mean, I see a lot of commentary basically complaining about the breadth of the market. So all the rally of the past few months has been limited to a lot of the big tech names, and Tesla is part of that group. And they were doubting for quite up till now. They were doubting whether that could continue, and that rally is kind of broadened a little bit. But I think they expect the seven, the ones you could name, all to do super. And they're like Apple's at I think an all-time high today.
Yeah.
They were 2 days ago too. I'm just going to say that I brought Juju today, but to make it more Farsad friendly, I put in blueberries as ice cubes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
this is very acceptable. Thank you.
I hope it's going to go to 400 today, so I need a lot of Juju today.
I bought Juju too.
Yeah, that's good.
I have water. Does that count?
Sure.
No, and I think that this debt ceiling thing, it kind of yesterday we got the first step, and today now it's final, and that's also a relief.
Yeah, and if no interest hike, and I think that's where people are leaning now. Yeah. If in June there's no interest hike, we'll get another bump. That'll be up, even though it's kind of, I think it's factored in already. It's not 100% factored in, and it will be bullish, and we'll get a bump, or we'll get a bump before and a drop after, but there'll be some impact, positive impact from it. I was, I heard somebody talking about this, and I didn't understand it when we started this process, so now I do. They were talking about growth stocks and what the impact is of increased interest rates on the value of the stock. And it was particularly as to growth stock. And they were saying for every 1% increase in interest rates, that decreased the value of the stock 10%. So if you kind of look in Tesla's case, we're about dead on. But that's pretty amazing, because before the interest rate hike started, and I didn't have a lot of experience to go through that cycle before, they were talking about how it would impact valuation of growth stocks. And I had no idea what they were talking about. And now, when it went from 412 to 106, I get it. I do get it.
So so maybe for me to fully get my head wrapped around this, is it because there is less risk associated to an asset that is going to return 1% per year, and instead of trying to be risky in a growth stock, which usually have a lot of risks associated to them, they're not super stable, they don't have dividends, they don't have buybacks, they're still in their figuring out phase. For every 1% of money you're going to be getting back, you're willing to forego 10% growth on a growth stock because of its risk. Is that the thought process? Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. I just want to make sure I got my head wrapped around that. Yeah, I do find it very interesting how the stock has been performing within this context of, if we talk about Tesla specifically, Tesla stock not nowhere near its all-time highs like your Googles and your Apples and all these other guys, but is very much enjoying the recent momentum of whatever's happening in the last few weeks, and it's happening while Elon has been fully immersed in Twitter. That whole thing is still going on. I don't know if you follow Twitter closely, but there was a whole thing yesterday on the platform related to the Daily Wire releasing a documentary called "What Is a Woman," and that has a lot of controversy tied to it. But I'll let you all figure that out on your own. I don't have an opinion, but there's a lot of stuff going on there. Some people got fired from Twitter yesterday, and he's still very much, in Twitter, voicing his opinion and doing his thing. But the Tesla story is continuing. It almost has decoupled from what a lot of people were fearing, which was Elon being Elon, right? And Elon saying stuff that is going to hurt the business or not, or the stock. But that's not happening now that the stock, it doesn't seem like it's happening. Do you guys have any thoughts around that? I'd be curious to pick your brain on that.
Mimi
wants to go.
You can start, Richard.
Okay. I was thinking that, if I was an analyst, I would say, okay, so maybe Tesla's not going to be successful at 19 different things, but worst case, they're Toyota. Worst case, they're going to be the number 1 automaker. If that's all they are, they're going to make tons of money. They're always going to have cash. We don't feel at risk. That's what I draw from that. So they're amongst the 7 companies, Apple, Microsoft, you can name, you know who they are. They're all basically like a bank. People feel if they put their money in, maybe they won't make a ton, but they're not going to lose a ton. They feel it's secure. And the fact that Tesla is now in that bucket is quite an amazing feat from, where we were a year ago. That's a lot of progress. Yeah. And, you got to give props to Elon for being able to make changes, especially the change at Twitter that I think was fabulous, a fabulous move. But he also learned how to, because there were a time he learned to restrain himself on Twitter also. There was a time where he was, every moment, and it was not helpful for probably his own personal finances. And he, not that he doesn't express himself, but he doesn't do it to the same extent. And I'm sure he has people counseling them on that. So I think it's great because that's really a shift. And we talk about companies that like Buffett would buy or invest in. That's the kind of signal that I see.
Mimi, what do you think?
I think just a thought. I think it's interesting when we talk about the big seven, that Apple and Tesla are the only ones who actually produce something.
What do you mean?
It's fascinating that so much money is in, something, a product, something
like
you
physical.
can buy and hold in your hand.
So like Facebook and Google and all these guys are all software. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you not view them as the same?
Well, I just think that it's, I mean, if you go 10 years back in time, that would have been a really, really weird concept, that companies offering things like that would be so high valued. But I think that,
I think NVIDIA now is kind of fits in that class also.
Yes.
And that's kind of, they produce hardware. So, I mean, that's,
I mean, that's what they do. They produce hardware.
Yeah, they do. They do. That's true. Yeah. But I think that the whole situation with Tesla and the stock price and everything feels a bit calmer now. It feels like it's not all these ups and downs and I think that Elon going to China and getting so much praise from Chinese politicians, and I think that's good. They really, really gave him, said so many good things about him, and I think that some of that rubs off in the rest of the world as well, and also that he did some really good interviews that I think that a lot of people watched. I mean, we watch all interviews wherever they are, but the last one was excellent, and not the last one because that was, but the one with this, what was it, CBS or was it MSNBC? CNBC, yes. Yeah. So I think that, I mean, I'm not going every day waiting for something terrible to happen that will make the stock drop. It feels a little bit even out, and I think that's nice. Yeah, and I think that the investors think that's nice too.
That was an interesting way you framed it, because it's less volatile. It feels like less volatility in general. And I think you were referring to the David Faber interview. That one we saw. Yeah. That was excellent. Yeah. And probably, he's gotten a lot more practice. So maybe he's more comfortable. Because obviously, and I don't know this for a fact, but I always heard like he had social issues. And so like doing interviews might have been really difficult for him. But like anything else, if you do like 1,000 of them, at some point in time, it becomes second nature and you relax, and it's probably easier for him. So that might play a part too. And he's open to it. Maybe that was one benefit of him getting Twitter, is he do Twitter spaces and things like that. And he could kind of become more accustomed to that medium.
Yeah. But I do still wonder how much of the quote unquote calmness that Tesla investors are feeling, because I agree with you. I do feel like a hump has been, like, we've gone over a hump, right? We were sort of like late last year, we were going through my God, it was a minefield of the perception was it was a minefield, right? And it was very hard to separate signal from noise. Now it's like, okay, Elon's doing his thing. He's giving these great interviews. It seems like he's being himself much more than he has been in the past. He's speaking his mind. He just seems like a regular dude that's smart on these interviews, which I think is really, really cool, just as a human being. But I think I do wonder how much of the calmness is related to the quote unquote changes or things that are happening that's directly tied to the Tesla story, or how much of it is really just the macro environment and the stock market as a whole that's carrying a positive story and Tesla's going along for the ride. How do you guys think about those two things?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I think that Tesla, the margins went down, but anyone can see that the future, like you said, even if they just make cars, even if FSD doesn't work out for another 5 years, it's still a very solid company. They're building new factories. They're expanding. The Model Y is selling like crazy all over the world. The Cybertruck is coming. If it comes this year, that is really good. If it comes next year, okay. So I think that, and the energy section is really, I mean, we read every other day about new huge deals with mega packs. Yeah, so I think that the base is getting stronger. We can't fall that low anymore. There's too much positive things. There are too many positive things going on. And then macro is macro, but I think that somehow you get used to it. You know, it's been volatile for a while, and you don't know how much the Fed, if they're going to raise 25 or 50 or whatever, or if they're going to or not, or when are they stopping. But this has been going on for a long time now. Now the market doesn't swing as fast or as much up and down. So I think it's a little bit of both, but I think that Tesla feels more solid now.
Richard?
I was going to say, you know, it's partly, I think, the logical move. So we went 400, that was probably 412. That was probably too far, too excited. We were all too excited. And 106 was too far. We were all too depressed. And so the number that's probably the real number is somewhere between that, and we're working our way to the real number. That's one. Two, I really do believe that Twitter was a huge stress on Elon. And once he was comfortable enough to pick a replacement, that took a burden off of him. Because I don't think for a guy like, and again, I obviously I don't know him. I have no idea. But
you don't? What?
I do not. I do not.
My
not
God,
well.
this
not
whole
well.
time.
We've only met a few times, but
okay.
But a guy like the way I see a guy like that is that a guy like that might be perfectly comfortable working on 5 things at once, but may not be really comfortable being stuck working on one thing.
Oh, sure.
And it might be harder. So for him, having to spend all his time and focus on Twitter, which was a pain in the ass for him and cost him a bundle and probably wasn't what he wanted to do, when he could, in his mind, he said, okay, I got somebody to take over, whether I got to spend time to get to that point or whatever, a great weight is lifted off my shoulders. And I think it corresponds with his ease in the interviews and that. I think really he's just kind of de-stressed, honestly. So I kind of think those two things, just kind of natural stock movements and Elon kind of having the stress lifted off his shoulders.
Yeah, I think that's a fascinating point, and I can totally see that. You know, the who likes to work on something they don't want to, and especially when you feel like you have to, and you know you've overpaid for it. They force you to buy it, and it might die, like literally in like 4 months. That doesn't seem like a good situation to be in. But I do think like going through that period as investors was very, very. It was challenging, but I think it was such a great exercise for. And again, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm like over here talking as if we're like, oh, clear skies ahead, and then tomorrow, you know, oh my God, the economy is collapsing, and we're back down to who knows what's going to happen, right? But I'm just saying, as a human being, it feels like we've reached a point somewhere that seems that is more upbeat than downy. You know, that's just a gut feel.
At one point in time, Gordon Johnson was perceived as a bull.
Right
during this run, right. Well, I remember that we were in the low hundreds, and people were saying, "Are we going to go down to 60?"
Right, I remember 50?
That. So I think anything's possible, obviously, but I think most people feel that we're not going to take a dump down like back to the hundreds. That we, whatever low is going to be a higher low, and we moved on. We're making progress towards a higher price.
Yeah, I do think there's something to be said about just a lot of momentum that's being built up around the story. You know, like we've covered the Ford, Tesla thing. You got the Highland, you got the Cybertruck, you got the stock performing well. You have Elon Musk in good spirits. You have an investor base that seems a lot more chill. And I also do wonder how much of the sort of because Tesla has such a strong retail investing community, that how much of the crazy noise we were hearing and the fear in the last, say, 6 to 9 months was related to folks that just were really unhappy with their investment And maybe those folks have exited for right or wrong reasons for their own risk tolerance, and now that's why there is a sort of perceived calm, because the retail investing base is so plugged in to that, to itself. We're all very plugged into each other, and some might call us an echo chamber, and I think in some spots we might be. And let's make sure we definitely try to fight that as much as possible. But I do wonder how much of that is being played for how much of that is actually some of the things that are happening.
Yeah, I think it goes both ways, because I remember, and Mimio I think was there too, when we were on Yashu's live stream when Tesla went to 1 trillion. Do you remember that? Sure. And we thought, so when's it going to go to 2 trillion? You get that, you get the exuberance going both directions. And, when people are at the good side, they're unreasonably over happy. And when that impacts their investment decisions too, and how they feel about life in general. And when you're on the 106, when it was at 106, that affects your investment and maybe your existence. And most people don't like losing money, and it does impact their day-to-day feelings.
Yeah. I'll tell you that 106 period, it was such a, it was so peculiar. Like, if I tell sort of my side of it, and I love to hear maybe we'll use a little group therapy session. Maybe we're going to air out our experiences here. Because I really do think it was a huge learning lesson for a lot of us. Like, for me, it was, because I was fortunate enough to have a forum where I could, I could communicate with people, and then folks would, communicate back through DMs and comments and all that stuff. And that period of time was so challenging for so many people, because, all of us are sort of watching this thing just almost teetering. Everybody thought it was going to freaking collapse. Like, no one was happy. It was very, very difficult. And I think the biggest lesson I learned was even in, especially when you have a platform where you can't voice your opinion, and it goes to a lot of people, and voice what you think is happening, or try to be helpful in a way, like, that responsibility is so freaking giant. But then you have to be doubly even more, you have to work so hard to separate signal from noise even more, because you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for a lot of people, right? And that's one thing that, and I think that's where my sort of switch went off, because I'm like, this is not just a hobby. Like, I was doing it as a hobby, but I'm like, holy shit, like, there's like literally people that are truly going through a very difficult time, and for a lot of them was the first time, right? It's like, I've never experienced anything like this before. And so, yeah, for me, it was just signal from noise is by signal and noise, and figuring out what is signal, what is noise, is probably the best skill set to have as an investor easily. And Emmett Peppers and Dave Lee and a lot of people have talked about this for a really, really long time, but you don't really get to understand how important it is until the shit hits the fan. And that time period was very helpful in me understanding that, because when you look back, in my opinion, I'll have to hear your thoughts on this too as we go through this, but a lot of it was noise. A lot of it was noise. And there were some signals, Yeah, Elon's saying some things, probably not a good thing. Elon maybe being very outspoken and trying, damaging his own personal brand as a human being, potentially. I'm not going to pick out exactly what he said, because that's subjective, but one could say, hey, that's probably not a good thing. Having zero focus on Tesla for extended period of time, regardless if it happened or not, we all agree that that's probably not a good thing, at least for it to happen so suddenly. But they're not really as serious as it seemed, because there is a track record that's attached to him. This is not new. It's happened before. I was at the company when they shifted everything from one place to another, right? So what did you guys learn? Like, what do you guys have from your standpoint that you could share that's related to that? Like, what are the lessons you've learned through that period? I think that
you're right about the noise, and but it's hard. It's so hard to tell the difference, and the market doesn't care. Sometimes it reacts to both equally. But I think that I talked my mother into buying Tesla when it was like 700-800 or something like that. And she never, ever, thank you, I love you. She never, ever said anything negative to me about this, not even when it was down to 106. And now she just stopped looking. So I tell her, well, she can see when it goes up. But I was I did my research before I invested, and I was always a long time investor. I'm not selling and buying. I'm letting it sit until 2030. And I was never really worried because the fundamentals were the same for me. I don't think that they ever changed. I think what I learned was to be calmer in myself, I was so upset with Elon. I mean, I was so upset, and I can still get so upset. Oh my God. And I think that he did so many stupid things and said so many stupid things, which is his right to do, but still you don't have to say everything you have a right to say. And also all the noise around and all the FUD and everything. So yeah, I think that what I learned most is to distance myself from a lot of the stuff or the talk. I left Twitter for a couple months. I didn't go. I was on Twitter so much, not only with Tesla stuff, but about the Ukraine war and all my Swedish connections. But I felt it was just. It took such a great toll on me. It was too hard, so I just left it, and that was very good for my mindset.
Great, thank you for sharing that, Richard.
One thing that I was lucky enough to do is I didn't have a ton of experience going through those situations, so I actually consciously thought, good or bad, I'm gonna soak this up, so that the next time this happens, I won't have the same reaction to it because I'll know it happens and it's just part of the way things going. I also learned that the stock is not the business. Business can be great. Stock can be in the toilet. They hopefully will meet at some point in time, but they're not the same. I also learned that when the stock is going down, that you have, and we talked about this a little bit, you have to be able to kind of survive investor how the investors are thinking at the time, the negative sentiment that they are going to express. You also have to understand that there's people that are holding short positions that are trying to take advantage of that, may also put out short reports, and you have to tolerate that on top of that. I also thought, and I really thought about this during the time, because we were interacting at that time. I was wondering, and I don't mean this to be embarrassing, but I was wondering, as there's a whole series of YouTube creators who may have made enough money to retire by getting stock and retiring. And maybe when they retire, Tesla was at 400 and now it's at 100. And I thought, wow, that would be really difficult if you retire, and as you go through the process, now you have to unretire. I thought that could be really stressful. I didn't know
what are you talking about?
Yeah. And then I also thought, one thing I learned and I've learned this over time is, I didn't really, I could figure out things on my own, but I watched a lot of YouTube videos, and I thought those people knew a lot more than they did. And now when I watch them with in a completely different way. I have a much higher degree of skepticism, and I will not rely on anything that I see in a YouTube video without at least verifying it, so I'm comfortable with it. So if things go south, it's my decision, and I can stick with a position. And I learned that also because at that time, I remember when I first got in the market, it was during COVID time. Everything was up, 10,000%. You could throw a dart and pick a stock and make it. And everybody thought, wow, that's the way it's going to be from this point forward. And then the next year, no bueno. But you learn a lot. You learn a lot both, that it's not the up and it's not the down. It's somewhere in between. And as Mimi said, you really just got to tolerate it and kind of not be emotional about it. And it's just business. and it's just like a financial statement is just a snapshot in time. Stock price is just a snapshot in time. It'll be different tomorrow.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Have you guys experienced anything like this before, or was it new for either of you?
Brand new for me.
Yeah, as an investor, brand new. Yeah. Absolutely. I just want to see, I see here DRK, and he says in the stream, Farsad, remember when you started the channel, it was therapy for us as a collective. And I think that's very true. Your channel, Yashu's channel, it was a great comfort to be around people with the same views and not 100%, but the same interest and the same base, sort of, to keep myself on the ground. I thought that was really nice.
That's flattering. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, by the way. I think it's terrific. I recommend you to a lot of people. A lot of them don't watch you, though, but that's okay. I think that was a joke. Yeah.
No. But I think just being in a stream and you see people and you come back and they say hi and you kind of, like Yashu said, I have so many friends out there. I mean, I have so many people I think of as friends. I don't even know their names. I don't even know what they look like. But still, we send our hellos and we talk about stuff every week. And that's a great strength of the Tesla community. It's very special. I can't see any other brand or anything else that has that.
And I do remember like those spaces we had when we had those days, and it really was like we were going on the couch and everybody kind of like let it out so they could feel better and we could move on.
It's okay to cry. You can cry.
Yeah. It's okay to cry on the video. Yeah. It's all right. It's all right. But I remember like the despair and the depression. Really, it was like palpable. You could feel it. And now you could feel kind of what we're talking. Now you could feel that lifted. You know, we're a lot lighter now than we were then.
Yeah. But I think a lot of that, though, is like, you know, I think a lot of that is the fact that all of us, many of us, however you want to say it, went through that, right? So we had to go through it, you know, and to really understand what it really meant to be in that situation. And then when you overcome that, then you're like, holy crap, okay, here are the 1,000 things I've learned about that experience. And it's always so fascinating to me as human beings how very often a lot of us suffer, and sometimes or oftentimes suffering is kind of good for us long term because we learn so many things from that suffering, you know. And it's so fascinating, and I'm almost thankful for having gone through that, you know, because if I think about that specific situation, like in the last year when it went down to 100, I could draw a lot of parallels to that and like the fudge storm that we were getting in 2016, 2018, 2018, you know, and the additional layer of being there and really going through that hardship of, I don't know if I'm going to have a job potentially. Everyone's telling me to sell the stock. Everyone's telling me to quit the company. Your CEO is crazy. Oh, and by the way, you have to work 80 hours a week, right? So it's like that was very difficult, but this one was probably even more so because of that layer of that. You have people looking at you, either right or wrong, you know, to be like, hey, can you help me? Can you help me guide? Can you guide me through this a little bit? Because I was getting it in my DMs, and so that was very, very. It was very humbling, very, very humbling. But I'm very, very glad I went through that personally because it taught me that, again, all those lessons. And it just, thank you for saying what you guys said, because this is ultimately, if we can continue to have a place where all of us can sit down and be vulnerable about what we're going through so that we can just like help each other by being vulnerable, I think that's ultimately the best thing that we can do as human beings. I feel like it's so helpful, and not judge each other. Right? It's like, hey, shit's hard.
And whatever we're saying in some degree, everybody else is experiencing the same, you know, some variation on the theme, everybody else. And I was going to say is, you know, we're not the only ones who go through that, right? So if you were, you know, just use NVIDIA as a example, you were at like 110, 105 less than a year ago. So you might have been at 300. So you had to tolerate that. And that tests your resolve. That's what I was thinking when you were saying it. If we weren't like Tesla forever, you know, before that shitstorm, afterwards, if we're still here, we're there. It's gonna be tough to move us off Tesla at this point in time. No, I know, but it really is interesting. You know, it's one of those things. Good. The bad news we had to get. The good news is we learned a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If everything was smooth all the time, we would never learn. It would never grow.
Yeah.
It's so true.
And also, we wouldn't have chosen Tesla if we weren't like a particular type of person anyway, because Tesla is a challenging company. It's challenging. It's not for everybody. You know, it's like I got a puppy, right? So, which I'm very proud of. It's a Rhodesian Ridgeback.
We got to pull up a picture here. Hang on.
Okay. Yes. And I have 2, and I've had 3. But if you're not like a dog owner so you have experience with dogs, they're not easy. And Tesla is not easy. So it's not for everybody, but we have shown our resolve to get through, hopefully, what will be the worst time we'll experience in Tesla. Yeah. Hopefully that's it.
Yeah. Do you think that there will ever be a time where it's not like this, and say that in the next 10 years? I mean, at some point there has to be, right? At some point these companies either die or they reach a steady state. You know, like how long do you think that will take, or is that not in our lifetime? Have you guys thought about that at all?
You know, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but I mean, Tesla, I mean, just look at all the things that are coming, the AI, the bots, the FSD, the robotaxi. It feels like that's at least 10, 20 years out with everything. So now I'll probably be dead before anything else happens.
Come on now.
But I don't know. At one time, it feels like it's going to be too big. It has to divide into smaller companies or something. It's going to be so diversified, so many different areas. And I think that the mission is what Tesla is doing now. The mission is clear. I mean, the energy and the cars, but the bots, the AI, no, it's not really according to the mission. If you take the environmental thing, it's for humanity. But I think that Tesla will always come up with new ideas. And as long as, and it sounds like Elon's going to hang on for a while. So, and I'm sure there are a lot of new talents coming after him. So I'm optimistic. I have to be.
I've been around enough to see like companies that I would never believe would not exist, didn't exist. So, and I think we're going to see it too. You know, like I throw it out like Stellantis. Between the 3 of us, does anybody of us believe that Stellantis will be around in 10 years? I don't think it's possible.
Unlikely.
Not in the form. And there's going to be a series of those companies that will cease to exist, but there'll be other companies that'll take their place that don't exist now, that maybe have more advanced technology. And I think, you know, that remains to be seen. But in terms of Tesla's spot, will there be a position of calm? I don't think in the near term, because I think it's going to be a growth story for at least the next 5-10 years. And that's not calm. I mean, the way you've described it, you know, the way you described your experience at Tesla, it's basically, you know, mass controlled chaos and, you know, get it done. And that's not calm, but obviously it produces amazing results. And, you know, if they're going to get to 20 million cars, it ain't going to slow down in the near term.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the analogy I like to use is like, you know, you have 2 people racing on a track. It's you know, say 100-meter dash, and you have one person that represents most companies, and then you have the other person that represents like a Tesla. And most companies, you know, will be walking to the end. You know, every 10 seconds they'll stop for a smoke break. They'll talk on their phone for a little while, and then on the other one, you have a person who's constantly trying to come up with a device that will help them go down the track at the speed of light, and every 5 meters it blows up in their face, and they're like covered in smoke, and there's like, you know, ashes, and their hair is on fire, but they're doing this all the time, right? And so that person will get to the end way faster than the other person, but it's going to look insane. Like, what the hell's wrong with this person, you know? But that's Tesla. That's how they operate. And so as long as they operate like that, I think that we'll go through ebbs and flows like these. But I do wonder if there's going to be reduced volatility as more and more people come to accept, it becomes more normal. It becomes normalized, right? Because even now, like, even in this, what we call the calm state, it's still very strange because you still have the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar multinational company that's going on Twitter and saying things that some people may not agree with. And I feel like that's never happened before at this scale of business with a person in so many different places, right? And so that in itself is peculiar and unique, but it's becoming normal, So I wonder how much normalization there's going to be in how Tesla operates. And maybe that's what's going to cause it's just a normal thing and all the pain is gone, but it's acting no differently than it was in 2022. And I wonder if that's how we actually reach normalization, which to me would be the ideal place, because, I would love to live in a world where regardless of who the individual is, they're able to express themselves, regardless of how potentially controversial it is, and as long as it's not in direct opposition of how the company should and is performing, that it is what it is, and then people continue on their merry ways. So I don't know. That might be too optimistic of me to think that way, but I'm hopeful.
It was kind of like interesting because I heard when Elon made a point of people making sure they go into work, and then I would hear in Silicon Valley all the tech CEOs quietly were hugely supportive of that policy, and they want to invoke it, but didn't have the balls to kind of come forward and accept the responsibility. So I think a lot of the business philosophy, maybe it's because the way you're saying it, it becomes acceptable if everybody starts to do it. So maybe things that he's professing now that are somewhat controversial, 5 years from now, it'll be the state of the art. That kind of everybody doing it, especially if Tesla continues to be as successful as it is, because being a model for other companies.
Yeah. What do you think, Mimi? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I shouldn't say this. People are going to be so upset. But yesterday on Twitter, someone posted a photo from Ford, how they were celebrating Pride. And they said, well, you don't see this at Tesla, And immediately I had to go to Tesla's website. And under career, I saw there were different photos of people working. And there was one with a lot of Tesla T-shirt people walking, and they had rainbow flags. And it said the company of inclusion or something like that, which I think was great. So I posted it. But then I thought that you said that it's okay to say whatever you want as long as it doesn't contradict with the company's message. And Elon has definitely tweeted things that contradict that inclusion thing. So I think that he should be allowed to do it. I have no problem with it. But I also think that we are over... I mean, in that case, we are living in a bubble because most people out there, they don't know that much about Elon, and they don't care about what he tweets. Most people are not on Twitter.
So I would say that. Well, okay. Maybe we should save this for the members only.
Yeah,
I have a lot of questions there.
Yeah, I was going to take you one step farther.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was going to say, in this country, I don't know how it is in Europe, but in this country, the transgender issue is a huge issue. And sometimes I think it gets linked to the gay pride issue. And I think they're tied together. But in this country, it's kind of like, listen, I live in California. I'm socially liberal, but I myself, just, being open, I find it a very confusing issue, especially at my age. So historically speaking, it's confusing. To me.
I think it's the most confusing for the people who are feeling like that.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. But I find myself, and I perceive myself as being open-minded. I find it a difficult issue, and I'm not making I'm not being judgmental. I'm not characterizing.
Right. Being honest.
I just think it's confusing. I think it's confusing.
But I agree. I mean, I have my nieces, and they talk about their friends, and like it's just a normal thing about all different types of persons. And I mean, hey, I have one gay friend. I probably have lots, but I don't know it. So it's definitely a generation question.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. If you grow up with whatever you grow up, you're for whatever it is, you're comfortable with it because it's kind of part of that. But when you don't, it's something new, and we kind of react initially. Most people react negatively to new. Kind of like change. It's kind of tough.
Yeah, I think the key thing here is that the open dialogue that's respectful is the key way for all of us to figure out how to navigate this forward. And we haven't had that. We haven't been able to do that, right? And I think now hopefully there is a way to do that, because I think all of us, there is a way for all of us to get on the same page. And I don't know what that page is, but you don't get there unless you actually sit down and talk to people, right? And you have to do so with people that have lived experiences and all that stuff. So it's a fascinating time.
Yeah, you don't have to agree, but we don't have to hate each other either.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool. All right, let's do some Q&A. Yeah? And then we'll go into our members only. How's that sound? You guys okay with that? Do you have anything you want to bring up?
I got one quickie. So we were talking about the partnership last week of Ford and Tesla. We spent a good amount of time. So I heard they just proposed new standards, automatic braking. You have to have automatic braking, and you have to have collision avoidance, which Ford does not have. So I heard the theory proposed that Ford is going to license that technology from Tesla, and that will be the next element of that partnership that will form on top of the supercharging.
How would they be able to do that without their hardware?
I'm not an engineer. What are you asking me?
You're just a messenger.
That's it. That's it.
You hear things. I think that's so exciting. That was on my topic list for today. Also, I think it's very good. I think it's very good for safety reasons.
Yeah. But I would think, if Ford does, and I think they said that all the European car makers, they've reached, Mercedes in particular, they're there, but the American car makers not. So some.
No, I was surprised because I think most cars.
Go ahead, maybe.
No, I think most cars here, if you buy a new car, Volvo, BMW, Audi, whatever, they have that. But yeah, I think that would be great. But I was listening to your discussion with Corey Farsad, and I thought that was so interesting, that discussion about the software, hardware part selling. And this is kind of a part of that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
There's so many great things.
Yeah, but it's interesting to think, we were talking about what additional partnerships are going to arise, and this might be kind of like the second in a series, because it is kind of amazing that Ford's technology is that bad that they don't even have like basic safety issues covered. Really?
Yeah.
Jim Farley, you should lose your job. Really? I mean, it is pretty shocking.
I mean, I think it's less. Here's the deal. I think it's less about and this is where regulations sometimes are a good thing. Like having too many regulations is not good for progress. Having too few regulations is not good for having common sense technology be present in everything. I think this is a place where the regulatory body in the United States around, if people don't want to spend that much money in a car, it doesn't mean that it should be any less safe than the same car for more money. That's what's super confusing about this whole thing, right? And we've always had this in the States. Do you remember when ABS used to be optional? ABS used to be optional back in the day, Yep. And it was for like the longest time until I think NHTSA made it. They forced every car maker to have a standard in their car. I think all this stuff will eventually become regulated by the regulators, I guess. But until they do that, a typical company is not going to add additional costs to their car because of all the different dynamics we've talked about, right? And again, what's fascinating about the way Tesla has done it is that they've baked in the costs for so long now. I mean, hardware, the full self-driving hardware has been in the car since 2017. So for 6 years running, they've been able to create a platform and a process to take out as much costs out of that as much as humanly possible, which is my catchphrase apparently, as humanly possible. And they've been able to retain safety features standard that's better than any other car maker, and it rivals your more expensive cars. And they're going to have this available through their entire thing. So it's an advantage. It's a huge advantage. And now traditional automakers now have to do this as well. They have to figure out how to add potentially up to $2,500, $3,000 of costs in, FSD computer, cameras, automatic emergency braking, lane avoidance systems, all this stuff in every single car they make, which is obviously going to impact their margins. And it's for a good thing. It's for safety. It's important.
But just the stuff that Tesla, that they do with the airbags, that they're constantly changing how they work according to new data. I mean, and they just send that out. I mean, they don't hardly ever tell people. They just improve the cars all the time.
They recall them, right? Isn't that a recall?
A voluntary recall. And I think that's amazing. That's what they should put in their ads when they start advertising.
But you're right.
One of the things.
You're right, Farzad. And first, I'm going to say something that I heard about this new restaurant on the moon. It has great food, but no atmosphere.
Okay.
Not
bad. That was okay.
Lucid. Apparently, they lose $500,000 a car.
Yes.
$500,000 a car. It's tough to make money. You're losing $500,000 a car. Other than BYD, I think nobody, and BYD's margins on electric cars are really narrow. But other than BYD, I don't think anybody makes profit on electric cars other than Tesla.
Well, the secret about BYD is that their margins include their gas cars.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So we're not. We can't even say if they're making profits in their EVs. They're making profits as a business, but they don't break out their EV sector.
We also don't know, because they count sales to dealers, so it's a different method, and they're also apparently don't meet the emission standards. So we don't really know their numbers. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're making some money. But other than that, nobody's making money. And again, you're right. Until you make money, you can't survive. Right. So Ford's in the same position. They can't afford to be spending additional money when they're already losing, $50,000 a car or whatever they're losing per car.
Yeah. If the crazy thing here is that with Ford breaking out Model E, which is the EV sector, that their EV business segment, if they never reach profitability, that could be a sign that says no legacy automaker will, potentially. Or it's like excruciatingly, it's incredibly difficult, excruciatingly difficult. I tried it the second time, it worked, to get to profitability. And so we have that barometer. They said 2026, right? 8%.
I think what caught my attention is he said that the cost of the vehicle wouldn't be less than the gas cars until 2030. That's what caught my attention.
That was GM saying that.
No, it was Ford.
Farley.
Yeah,
Farley was GM. Okay, all right, I got it confused.
I thought that was troubling.
Yes, very pessimistic.
Cars are going to be overpriced. They're going to be overpriced continually.
But that's why I think Ford, I think Ford's strategy, and you kind of heard this, I believe, in Q1 with some of the verbiage they were using, is that it's not affordable EVs, mass market. It is higher priced electric vehicles that are going to be able to carry a premium because of exactly what you said, because the cost parity equation for Ford is not until 2026, whereas a company like Tesla it's probably already there. And with the compact car, they're actually going to take it so that it's even below that. It's super concerning. And there's two different equations, right? There is make money on electric cars is one. And the second equation is make a car that everyone's going to be able to buy. And those two things are very different. And so if Ford can't do both, if it can't do profitable car that everyone wants to drive, then Ford is not Ford anymore. Ford is some shell of itself that goes from a 4 million per year car maker to like 500,000 cars per year, which I'm not saying is failure or success. All it is that it's probably going to be a much smaller automaker than all of us expect, unless they're able to offer those two things in tandem before everyone else does. And if they can do that, then they retain their status of where they are today.
Or else they're going to do like an Elon timeline. So they're going to say they're going to do 2 million cars, I think, by 2026.
Production capacity to do 2 million.
Yeah, so maybe they'll actually produce 2 million cars in 2031. It might be something like that. And, there's going to be slow in the ramp up. And they're going to be, like, you're right, they're going to be an also-ran because the market's going to already be developed so much by that point. Listen, we figure amongst us 10 million minimum by 2030, right? And we think that's ridiculously low. We think that's ridiculously low. But I don't think Ford's going to get 2 million by 2030. Not the pace they go. Not if they lose money. Not until they learn how to make money.
Something drastic has to change. Yeah, something. And maybe that's part of their plans. Maybe in 2024, 2025, maybe Elon and Farley are already talking and they have something planned for 25. We're like, hey, we got the space queued up. Let's talk about the changes, right? So anyway, all right. We got 15 minutes left. I want to make sure we hit Q&A. Mimi, did you want to hit anything before we do Q&A quickly?
No, I just want to say, really, talking about profitability, that Volvo, they now sell 25% EVs and their profit is picking up month by month. I think that it will be so interesting to see their numbers in detail, or any company that because it seems like, but they have been planning this for a long time. They got rid of their own factories that made ICE engines years ago. They've been taking step by step towards EV, and it seems like it's working for them. I hope it will, but it will be interesting to see what kind of strategy they were using, because it seems to be working better than others, at least.
I'd be surprised if Polestar is mass market. I think they'll be in Volvo. I think they'll be luxury forever. I wouldn't expect them to manufacture
Polestar,
more.
Yes, I think so. On Volvo too, it's not a cheap car either. So
so we'll see. Okay, let's do Q&A. Thank you all so much for joining us. In about 15 minutes, we're going to move on to a member-only stream, which you can join by clicking on join right below this video. Those are awesome discussions with our community. We'll continue, and we'll talk about whatever comes up. Not necessarily Tesla or EV or anything like that. It's whatever comes up. So let's bring up the first question, and let's see what the panel thinks. Jordan Landry, question: do you think the Cybertruck will be released this year? Yeah, I think 100% yes. What do you guys think?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Jordan. Next question. And V, what is the one thing you disagree with Elon about, if any? I know Mimi agrees with Elon on everything, so I'll let her go first. What do you disagree with Elon about?
Oh my God. No, don't get me started. I disagree with Elon. Well, I think that actually, I mean, he thought that free speech would be so easy, and now he's realizing it's not so easy. So I think that
did he say it was easy?
No, not easy, but I mean, he had this vision about you just allow things. And now he's realizing with Twitter that it's not that easy. You have to have rules. You have to just look at the thing that happened yesterday. Well, now I can't think of anything. My God, I have to come back. I'm sorry.
I have one.
Probably too
many things. You want me to go?
Yes.
Okay.
You have one? Wow.
What does that mean? Get out of here. He said that chess is not that complicated of a game, and it's kind of lame, and I 100% disagree. I think chess is freaking awesome. Yes. Yeah, and it's way more complicated than it seems. I think Elon sometimes tends to like if something isn't maximally complicated, it's not like it's like it's somehow maybe inferior, and I'm putting words in his mouth, right? But like that was like a thing. It's like, how can you not, because he used a different game as an example, Polytopia or something. It's like, yeah, this is way better. It has all these dimensions. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't mean chess isn't that complicated. Chess is no, all the grandmasters still aren't as good as a computer, and never will be, which means it's complicated. So that's one I take issue with. Elon, damn it, chess is complicated. Go ahead, Richard.
Yes,
I have two. One, his decision not to complete the boring tunnels from Hawthorne to Bel Air and from Hollywood to Dodger Stadium. Phooey on you. And two, the real one is the way he did stock sales, that he did it in public as opposed to not doing it in the dark pool where it wouldn't impact the price and brokers wouldn't know he was selling. So if I were going to argue, I'd say next time you do stock sales, do it privately so it doesn't impact the stock price as much.
Now I have one. I do not agree with Elon that I can't understand how he can support DeSantis. Elon is pro free speech, and DeSantis is constantly hindering free speech, banning books, restricting what people can say. That I cannot comprehend.
Okay. I disagree, but okay.
Yeah, I knew you would.
But thank you for sharing. Next question. And Dan B, Tesla bus, a possibility? I think the van might fit this in somewhat, right? Maybe a smaller form factor. How do you guys think about this?
There are already quite a few electric buses. I don't think it's needed.
Yeah, I agree. That segment is pretty full. Because that was like where a place where they started. Like we were talking about BYD, and they did buses, Proterra. There's a bunch of companies that do them. I don't know what I don't know is what the need is. So maybe even if there's a lot of supply, maybe there's a bigger requirement. I do not know.
Yeah, I wonder if the bus form factor is going to become obsolete as, say, the compact car or robotaxi form factor is able to take people from point A to point B from anywhere to anywhere at a cheaper per mile cost than a bus because of how cheap it is going to be to run it.
Just so I wonder look at all the school buses, buses.
What about them?
I mean, it is good to have a lot of people in a smaller area than having tons of cars driving around everywhere. It's also a question of space.
Okay. But what if the cars never stop? Like, self-driving cars don't really need to stop, do they?
Have you been in LA in rush hour?
Yeah,
that was my stop all the time.
That was my question. So if everybody is driving EVs, or most, and they all communicate with each other, I would expect the flow of traffic to be significantly better.
Correct.
And so maybe that'll affect how we decide to move. Because maybe if we get someplace faster, maybe we want to have a solo vehicle. Maybe we won't want to be with other people. I don't know. But I would think it's probably going to change the way we transport people if it's significantly shorter. Just like, if you take an airplane as opposed to taking a train, it definitely impacts your existence.
Yeah.
But like I took the bus to school every day for 7 years, and it took 40 minutes. I lived outside town in a little village, but we were a full bus every morning and every night. It would be stupid to have 40 cars going all that way and back again. I mean, it's kind of also a social function.
But why is it stupid?
I think because it uses up more raw materials. It's worse for the environment to have 40 cars going back and forth instead of one bus.
What if the cars are fully recyclable?
It doesn't matter. An EV is heavy, and it tears down the road much faster. It releases a lot of particles from the tires that are really dangerous. So if you can save on that, that's very good. The fewer vehicles, the better.
Okay. So you're willing to give up a time penalty to use less tires? What if they come up with a tire that doesn't degrade?
But I can't see why. You said time?
Tire. So you're saying because the bus you're going to have to stop right at every stop and pick up the people. right? So instead of going, say, from where you used to live, I mean, if you had a direct route to the school, how long would it have taken? Like 20 minutes, maybe?
We're talking about kids. I think they can spare those 10 minutes every morning and day. I hope so, because they spend that 10 minutes talking to friends, which is more valuable than
why
everything.
Not make
is
the
not
school like.
Why are we saving time? What are we saving time for?
Well, because if you lived in LA and had to drive in traffic, and you could cut that drive from 40 minutes to 10 minutes, your life would be significantly different. So that's one reason.
I think if everyone went in buses, we would cut the time even more, because there wouldn't be that many cars.
You know, what's funny was that I took a bus to school too. It took me like an hour, and all I remember is when I got to school, I was nauseated from being in that bus for an hour. That's what I remember.
It wasn't very fun. maybe Sweden has very good buses. Maybe the bus.
Yeah, we don't have American school buses. Oh no, we have very good buses, and we didn't stop that many times. I mean, it probably was 5 minutes faster to go by car.
Okay, so Sweden is the land of IKEA, Opeth, and buses.
And you are also taking for granted that everybody will afford a self-driving car.
Everybody will be able to afford a ride in a self-driving car. Yes.
Yeah, with robotaxis. Yeah, but I think I don't believe in robotaxis. So.
Okay. All right. another great topic to discuss.
You know, also in this
not for a long time.
And I'm just speaking about LA. I don't know how it is elsewhere, but it's also an element of personal freedom. So it's a way of kind of being individual. I know it's contrary to the way you're saying that you want to socialize kids, but it's kind of how it is out here. And the United States is really big on, and I don't agree with a lot of the sentiment, but it's big on personal freedom, and being able to drive your car when you want to is kind of part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think going on a school bus hinders my personal freedom. But I mean, I know, but I mean, Sweden is the most individualistic country in the world. We have the largest amount of households living single. 50% of all households are singles, and the personal freedom is big. But I think that there are other values. I mean, I think, well, probably the kids
You're much
just
more
sit
communal.
on the bus.
Yeah,
you're a lot more communal. Would you say that's correct? Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Props to Carol Herr. That was my bus driver when I was like 10.
Carol Herr? I don't remember mine. I just remember with mine, I didn't know how to speak English, and he taught me the word "what's up," and I went home and I remember telling my dad, "What is what's up?" And he's like, "Oh, it's what's up," and I'm like, "What's up?" He's like, "Oh, it's like a way of saying hi." I'm like, "Okay," and so I started saying, "What's up?"
That's so funny because in Sweden we didn't have a school bus driver like you have in the US. I mean, it was just the same bus company that drove all the normal buses, like the city buses. So we have different bus drivers. I mean, so I don't know the names of mine.
What a great question by Dan B.
So good. My goodness, we got into bus culture in Sweden.
Yes, my God.
All right,
thank you.
Let's
Dan.
do a couple more. Yeah, thank you. Let's do a couple quick ones, and then we'll move on to members only. Next question. And Per Johan, community member. Thank you so much for supporting us. That's why he's got the little badge. Families that get the Optimus will adopt it as a family member. What do you say?
Absolutely. You're going to name your Optimus robot, and he's going to be at the dinner table with you. Going to take him on vacation. Absolutely.
He's going to serve dinner.
He'll do that.
He's going to serve dinner.
He'll do that too, and then drink a quart of oil afterwards.
Didn't I tell you that I had that discussion with Lulo, my boyfriend, and he said, well, he would have to have his own, or she would have to have his own room. I said, why? You can just stuff him in the closet or something. And he thought that was repulsive. He said, no, we can't put him in the closet. I said, it's a robot. My God, he doesn't need his own room.
That's amazing.
He would be working during night. Then he would do all the boring stuff.
Do you need an extra room for each robot? Is that how it goes?
No, I think we're just settling for one robot whenever. But I guess he can do the cleaning stuff.
I can't wait to have mine for my first video. Just gonna standing like right here, and we're gonna do a video together. It's gonna be amazing.
I wonder how long they last. It will be sad when they die. And what do you have funerals, or do you just melt them down?
I wonder how many people are going to use them in the carpool lane as their passenger.
You have a recycling ceremony.
So many possibilities. You see, all these businesses are starting to, like, all these business ideas coming up.
I named my car. Of course, I would name my robot. My God,
that's true. Yeah, I think so. I think they
would give it a last name or just the first name.
Oh, it will have my last name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not my boyfriend's. I mean, we're not married, so we have different. It's a constant argument.
There you go. And I'm sure you win quite often. Is that right?
Practically all the time.
Yeah, there you go. Congratulations. So you're basically married.
He's a wise man.
There you go. All right, let's do one more and wrap the sucker up and go to members only. Tawanda, question. I am in Botswana. Southern part of Africa. Loving the channel. Thank you so much.
Wow,
how long till the first Tesla arrives here? By the way, Starlink is coming to our side next year, and they're moving extremely fast. That's fantastic. When do you guys think Tesla will start being available in places like Botswana? I hope as soon as possible. I think compact car will be the first vehicle that will enter that market, if I were to guess.
Did we talk about that article about all the used cars being shipped to Africa? Yeah. So I hope and pray that EVs will come to Africa as soon as possible. I mean, you can have sun-powered infrastructure, charging infrastructure. Just start building them.
Why not?
It's the most important.
Why not build a factory there? Doesn't even have to be a giga. You know, we could remember they talked about it. They could build those smaller sized factories. Why not give it a shot, see how it goes?
Yeah.
Tawanda, I love that. I must say, it's one of my dreams. I'm going to Botswana one of these days.
Nice.
I've been to South Africa and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, same.
Africa is a wonderful continent.
Does anybody have an idea what time it is in there?
Same as here, I think.
Is it?
Botswana.
Yeah. That was so good flying to South Africa because we had no time gap, no jet lag.
9:30.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
And just to get it back to where we started, those Rhodesian Ridgebacks, that's their native place.
Oh,
yes.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. They should be called Botswanian Ridgebacks now when the colony is dead.
They should be.
Let's show Richard's new puppy here before we head out for members only. Pull up the picture, producer wife, of Richard and his suit. Look at that. Oh my goodness.
God, what's his name? It's a he.
It's the one in my arm. It's Agatha. And,
Agatha. Oh, it's a girl.
And the one on my right is Dante.
Cute. My goodness.
Is Dante? What do you say?
He's
castrated?
He's a Ridgeback also.
But can he become a father?
He could about 9 years ago.
No longer. Yeah, that's good because if you're moving in a girl, it might be kind of a.
Yes. It was. We had to figure out how to work it, and it had to be a puppy too because they're very protective of us, and it needed to be a small dog so we can get used to it. And she's a sweetie.
Oh my God! How old is she now?
She's like 11 weeks, 11 and a half weeks.
Oh, I'm getting puppy sick. Oh my God.
Super cute. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Mimi. Thank you, Richard. We're going to move over to our member-only stream. You can join us there by clicking on join right below this video. Thank you to the mods for always doing an excellent job. Thank you to everybody in the comment section for another great discussion. I think today we peaked at, let me see the stats, at 11:15, 11:24 or so. So it was quite a good crowd. Nice. Yeah, quite a good crowd. Very thankful for y'all.
By the way, thank you, CM, again for your work.
Yes,
absolutely.
CM, producer wife, as always, the rock star, the GOAT producer in the world. And join us on members only here shortly, and we'll see you in the next one. Love you guys. Thank you, Mimi. Thank you, Richard. We'll see you in the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.